Hey everyone, today we're going to dive into a story that might feel almost unreal, but I promise you, it's mine. And trust me, it starts in the most ordinary way before turning into something I never could have predicted. I'm going to take you right into my world, moment by moment, thought by thought, so you can experience it the way I did. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Now, picture this. You're sitting where you are right now, maybe late in the evening or early in the morning, whatever the local time is for you. And suddenly, imagine hearing something that makes you question everything you thought you knew about life, about your body, and about the future you assumed was waiting for you. That's exactly how it started for me. Nothing dramatic, not at first. It was a slow whisper in the back of my mind, a little nudge that something was off. But I didn't know that tiny signal was the first domino falling in a chain that would completely rearrange the story of my life. Now, let's listen to the fascinating story in this video. It all started on a day that seemed like any other. I remember sitting in the waiting room, my foot tapping against the tile floor, trying to convince myself it was nothing serious. I had been feeling a little off, tired, maybe a bit weaker than usual, but I kept brushing it aside. You know how it goes. Too much work? Not enough sleep? Maybe I should eat better. That was my excuse every time. When the doctor finally called my name, I walked in expecting the usual checkup, a quick prescription, maybe some vitamins, and then I'd be on my way. But the look on his face the moment I sat down told me this wasn't going to be quick, and it definitely wasn't going to be routine. He cleared his throat, glanced at the file in his hands, then at me, and said something I'll never forget. I need you to prepare yourself. The tests, they don't look good. In fact, I have to be honest. You may only have about a month. I laughed. Yeah, you heard that right. I laughed. Because what else do you do when someone throws that kind of grenade at your life? I thought it had to be some kind of mix-up, a mistake in the lab results, or maybe he was just exaggerating to scare me into taking things seriously. But no, his face stayed solid, unmoving, dead serious. Suddenly, the room seemed smaller. The walls felt like they were closing in. My ears rang so loudly I could barely hear his words anymore. He kept talking, something about options, about treatments that might slow things down. But I wasn't listening. All I could hear was that one sentence, 1 month left. I walked out of that office in a daze. The world outside too bright, too loud, too real. People were going about their day like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. I wasn't the same person who had walked in 30 minutes earlier. When I got home, the weight of the words finally crashed down on me. At first, I tried to pretend everything was fine, sat on the couch, turned on the TV, scrolled through my phone like nothing had happened. But the truth kept creeping in, louder and louder, until I couldn't hear anything else. Doctors gave me 1 month, just 30 days. Like a clock had been strapped to my back, ticking down with every breath I took. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, feeling the pressure of every second passing. My chest felt tight, my throat dry. And then it happened. I broke. The tears came unstoppable, like a flood I didn't even know I was holding back. I wasn't just crying, I was collapsing inside. The idea of losing everything, of saying goodbye so soon, it felt like my entire body was shutting down from the inside out. The next morning, I couldn't even get out of bed. My phone buzzed with messages, calls I ignored. Friends thought I was busy. Family assumed I was fine. But I wasn't. I was sinking deeper into this black hole of fear and disbelief. At some point, I even found myself staring in the mirror, whispering, "This can't be real. Not me. Not now." The strangest part? The world didn't stop. Bills still showed up in the mailbox, neighbors still waved good morning, traffic still piled up on the street. Everything looked the same, but I had fallen apart. Inside, I was crumbling, piece by piece, with nothing to hold on to. It wasn't just sadness, it was anger too. I felt cheated, robbed of the future I had planned, of the years I thought I was guaranteed. I replayed moments in my head, wondering if I had missed the signs, if I had done something wrong. But the more I searched for answers, the more helpless I felt. I had officially collapsed, physically, emotionally, spiritually. My story could have ended right there, in that silence, in that despair. But somehow, buried beneath all that darkness, a tiny spark was waiting. After days of lying in bed, trapped in that fog of fear, something inside me finally snapped. Not in a bad way, but in the kind of way where you realize I can't keep living like this, even if I only have 30 days. If the clock was ticking, I didn't want to waste whatever time was left drowning in despair. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one morning, staring at a cold cup of coffee. The house was quiet, sunlight pouring through the blinds. And that's when it hit me. If doctors said I had 1 month, then maybe this was my chance to live differently, to fight, to search, to try everything I hadn't dared to before. It wasn't about blind optimism. It was about refusing to hand over my story so easily. So I began a new journey. The first step? Information. I buried myself in books, documentaries, late-night internet rabbit holes. I wanted to understand what was happening to me, what others had done when they were told their time was almost up. I reached out to people I never thought I would, old friends, distant relatives, even strangers in online forums who had fought similar battles. To my surprise, many of them answered. Some offered advice, others encouragement, and some simply said, "Don't give up. Doctors don't always know everything." That one sentence stuck with me. Don't give up. Doctors don't always know everything. I started experimenting with small changes, eating differently, walking outside even when I didn't feel like it, practicing breathing exercises that made me feel more grounded. I wrote in a journal every night, sometimes angry scribbles, sometimes tiny notes of gratitude for things I had overlooked before. The way the air smelled after rain, the warmth of sunlight on my skin, the laugh of a neighbor's kid echoing through the street. It wasn't easy. Some days I fell back into that dark hole, convinced the countdown was still ticking, unstoppable. But other days, I felt a shift. I could almost hear my body whispering, "Thank you." This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about reclaiming a sense of control, no matter how small. I didn't know where this journey would take me, or if it would even change the outcome. But I knew one thing. I wasn't ready to stop fighting. The pivot point in my story didn't come with fireworks or some dramatic movie moment. It came quietly, almost too quietly for me to notice at first. I had been a few weeks into this new routine of learning, experimenting, and pushing myself out of the fog. And then one morning, I woke up and realized I didn't feel as heavy. My body still ached, sure, but there was this tiny pocket of energy inside me that hadn't been there before. It was small, but it was real. I clung to that spark like it was oxygen. Instead of saying, I only have 1 month left, I started asking, what if I have 1 more month after this, and then another? That shift in perspective was huge. I stopped counting down and started counting up. Every day survived wasn't just another day gone, it was another day gained. And then came the test results. I'll never forget sitting in that office again, bracing myself for the worst, my palms sweating, my mind racing. The doctor glanced at me, clearly surprised, and said, "Your numbers, they've improved." Improved. That single word hit me harder than any diagnosis ever could. It wasn't a miracle cure, it wasn't a guarantee of anything, but it was proof that I wasn't powerless. Proof that maybe, just maybe, I had more say in this than anyone thought. That moment was my pivot. The script had changed. From then on, I pushed harder. I doubled down on the small victories. The new foods, the exercise, the late-night meditations where I whispered to myself, "You're not done yet." I started to dream again, not huge dreams, but small ones. Going for a hike, visiting a friend, even just cooking a meal without feeling drained. And every time I achieved one, I felt stronger. The most surprising part? Other people noticed too. Friends who had drifted away began reaching out, inspired by the changes they saw in me. Strangers online began following my journey, leaving comments like, "I needed to hear this today." Without realizing it, my fight had become more than just mine. It had become something others could hold on to as well. That was the true turning point. Realizing that even if I didn't know how much time I had left, I wasn't just living for myself anymore. My story mattered to others too. And that gave me a new kind of strength I never knew I had. The fight reached its peak in ways I never could have imagined. There were days when I felt unstoppable, almost invincible, fueled by this new wave of determination. And then there were days when I collapsed on the floor, gasping for breath, convinced that maybe the doctors had been right after all. It was a constant roller coaster, one moment full of hope, the next drowning in fear. But here's the thing, every setback taught me something. Every painful step, every sleepless night, every tear shed in frustration, it all became fuel. I stopped seeing my struggle as a curse and started seeing it as training. Like life was sculpting me, breaking me down only to rebuild me into someone stronger. The real climax came during a visit to the hospital, months after my so-called deadline. I walked in expecting the same routine tests, the same sterile smell of disinfectant, the same nervous glances from nurses. But this time, the results didn't just show improvement. They showed stability. My body wasn't failing. It was holding on. Against every prediction, I was still here. I remember sitting there, stunned, as the doctor shuffled through the papers and said, almost reluctantly, "I don't know how to explain this, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Those words felt like fireworks exploding in my chest. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was victory. Not the kind of victory where you cross a finish line and everything is perfect, but the kind where you prove to yourself and everyone else that you're far tougher than anyone gave you credit for. And the climax wasn't just in the medical reports. It was in my heart. I started saying yes to things I had once put off. Meeting old friends, traveling to places I thought I'd never see, trying hobbies I had always dismissed because I was too busy. Each experience felt like a defiance of the clock that had once ticked so loudly above me. The most powerful moment came late one night, standing outside under the stars. I looked up at the sky, cool air brushing against my skin, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running out of time. I felt infinite. Maybe not in years, but in spirit. That was the climax of my fight. Not just proving the doctors wrong, but proving to myself that no one could ever write the ending of my story except me. Looking back now, I realized the greatest gift wasn't just surviving past that so-called one-month deadline. It was everything I learned in the process. Life has a funny way of shaking you awake when you least expect it. And for me, that wake-up call came in the form of 4 words I'll never forget. You have 1 month. But here's the truth I carry with me. None of us actually know how much time we have. Doctors give predictions. Clocks keep ticking, but life itself is unpredictable. That doesn't mean we should live in fear. It means we should live fully. If I could leave you with one message, it would be this. Don't wait for a crisis to start appreciating the little things. Don't wait for a deadline to chase the dreams you've been putting off. Time is precious, but it's also elastic. It stretches in the moments when you're truly present, when you're laughing with a friend, when you're doing something that lights you up inside. I'm not saying it's easy. There will be days when you collapse, when fear feels louder than hope. But if my story proves anything, it's that even in those moments, there's still a spark waiting to be found. And that spark can grow into something far bigger than you imagined. So, whether you're watching this in the middle of the day or late at night, wherever you are, I want you to take one small step today. Call someone you love, step outside for a walk, write down that dream you've been hiding in the back of your mind. Don't wait, because at the end of it all, it's not about how many days we're given, it's about what we choose to do with them. And trust me, you have more power over your story than you think.